You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hi, listeners. I'm Bela Musitz, host for this episode of the 15 Minutes Share Your Voice podcast, where we talk with top-notch law firms and attorneys about what it takes to grow a successful practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help your law firm accomplish its objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and to make sure you're getting the best return on your investment, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Today's guest on the podcast is attorney Elizabeth Yang. She is the founder and CEO of Yang Law Offices. Prior to practicing law, Elizabeth worked for the Raytheon Corporation as an electrical engineer. She is also a successful author, having written 6 books on a wide range of topics. Welcome to the podcast, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you for having me today.
Sure. Can you tell us a little bit, number one, where your firm is located and what are the different practice areas?
Yeah, we're located in Southern California. We have offices in Los Angeles, Monterey Park, Beverly Hills, and also Orange County.
Oh, wow. So it's a pretty big-sized firm.
Yeah, we have about 30 people, and the attorneys span across different practices. Mainly is family law, which is divorces, child custody issues, restraining orders. But we also do estate planning, civil litigation, and also intellectual property.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So nice broad spectrum of practice areas. So can you tell me sort of when you started the law firm?
Yeah, I started this law practice at the end of 2016, early 2017.
Now, I can imagine sort of the typical route is somebody goes to law school, they graduate from law school, they join a larger firm, and, they're an associate, and then maybe they make it to junior partner or something. And then I imagine there's a fair number of people who listen to this podcast who are maybe contemplating starting out on their own and starting their own law firm. What words of advice might you have for someone like that?
So I actually did join a big law firm when I first started out. When I first graduated from law school, I worked for this law firm called Howery and Simon. They're an international 800 plus attorney law firm. And in a few years after gaining experience, that's when I decided to start my own practice. So for listeners out there, I would encourage getting experience at a law firm first before starting your own practice, because then you can see how a law firm is run, how other attorneys do things, and also gain experience by learning from a more senior attorney who can mentor you. There are, however, attorneys that finish law school and just jump straight into opening their own law practice. That's definitely doable too if they've got that entrepreneurial spirit, and then they can still learn from colleagues and friends who are in the legal industry, who are also business owners. So there's many ways to go about it. There's not a one size fits all track in the legal industry.
Sure. Was there sort of an event or a trigger point that you woke up one day and you said, okay, I'm gonna start my own firm, or was it something that you've always sort of thought about?
There was a trigger point. I actually had kids. I became a mom. And when my daughter was born, during that first year when I was still working for Big Law, I barely got to see her. So Big Law, it pays well, but you've got to work the hours. It's approximately 2,000 billable hours every year. And in order to build that many hours, you pretty much have to work around 80 hours a week. And I was on call pretty much all the time. We had Blackberries back then. So if my Blackberry sounded in the middle of the night or on the weekend and a partner was looking for me, I had to make myself available, because all the other associates were. And that's why I got paid the big bucks. But then my nanny was pretty much in charge of my daughter that first year. And I was like, you know what, if this continues, my daughter is going to grow up thinking that my nanny is her mother.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to come out, start my own practice to create the work-life balance I needed so that I can be there for my children and earn a living at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So it must be, both exciting and sort of maybe a little scary to start out on your own because you go from this nice big salary to zero and then nobody knows you, right? In sort of your practice areas. You don't have clients that are already built up. So what were some of the challenges in sort of getting going for you?
Definitely getting a stable clientele in the very beginning was challenging, but I learned that in a new business, advertising and marketing is the main thing to invest into.
Mm,
So we were putting maybe 60% of our revenue right back into marketing and advertising in order to get our branding up, in order to get our name out. So in the beginning, it was definitely very scary without a stable clientele. But
yeah.
within a short couple of years, after all the money we invested into advertising and building up a reputation, we got a steady stream of clients pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to come back to that advertising and promotion stuff that you did in a second. But when you started, were you a solo practitioner or did you have a partner when you started?
I actually did have a partner. So I started a partnership even earlier on, back in 2011. And
Yes.
I ran that partnership for about 5 years. When I was running that partnership, we mainly did intellectual property. So IP law was my
Mm,
first area of law because my undergrad, my degree is in electrical engineering and computer science. Even when I was working at Harry, I was only doing IP. In
yes.
2011, basically the same year I started the partnership, I also filed for divorce. And
Mm,
my divorce lasted 4 years long, even though my marriage was only a year and a half. And during those 4 years, even though it was very difficult and stressful, my bedroom was pretty much covered with court documents from my own case
mm,
rather than my client's case. But because of that experience, I gained a lot of knowledge about family law.
mm.
And around 2015, 2016, after my divorce finished, my friends started coming to me asking if I could help them with their divorce cases. And slowly, the cases for family law just started trickling in. People learned that I could help them with their divorces, that I
Sure.
had talked through mine. And family laws started getting more popular in my arena than intellectual property. And then on my partner's side, he started expanding into immigration. And
Hmm.
so we basically grew in different directions and decided to go our separate ways. So that's why in 2016, early 2017, I dissolved the partnership. We separated and I started my own practice. And it was mainly family law. We still
Yes.
do intellectual property, but family law is just busier than ever, especially during the last 3 years of the pandemic.
Mm,
Quarantine has caused a lot of relationships to fall apart, and their business has pretty much tripled in size because of COVID.
wow. Wow. Yeah. So what were some of sort of the early challenges or surprises? What things surprised you when you started out on your own? You're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of this.
Oh, so many things. And it's not even just starting off on my own in the beginning. It was even now, 5, 6 years into my practice, there are still things that come daily that surprise me. I think that's just the life of an entrepreneur. um,
Yes.
yeah, like in the very beginning, I had one associate. And then as we continued growing and business kept booming, I had to hire more people. Well, as after years of entrepreneurship, I've learned that hiring and managing people is more difficult than managing clients and their cases.
Mm, yeah.
Um, I've learned that a lot of associates come into our firm because compared to big law, we are smaller, even though we have 30 people, but in the grand scheme of things, we're still pretty small. And so
Yeah.
people would use us as a stepping stone. They'll come, they'll gain experience, they'll learn, and then their next goal is to be hired into a bigger law firm. Maybe a law firm where they can get better reputation, or
Sure.
partnership or more money. So we end up being the training grounds for a lot of associates. And nowadays, I end up hiring more senior attorneys. I feel like even
Mm,
though we have to pay them more money, but it's more worth it because they're stable. They're not gonna come just for a couple years and then jump ship.
yeah.
So we've learned the hard way, but it's all lessons learned along the way. And now as we're growing, we're learning how to put systems into place. In the very beginning, I'm the
Mm,
main rainmaker. People come because they want me to be their attorney.
yes.
But as I grow, I could bring enough cases to maybe feed 5 or 6 attorneys. But now, as we're at 10, 12, 15 attorneys, it's too much pressure on me, one person, to bring in enough cases for all of those attorneys.
Yeah.
So now we're putting an intake conversion system into place so that we have more rainmakers, not just grinders and work or people working on the cases.
Yeah. 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 There is a lot of policies and procedures you need to start thinking about as well. How do we handle this? How do we do that? Right. As you grow bigger.
Yeah, yeah. And we've gone through a lot of case management software too, a lot of CRM
Mm,
systems. We started off just using Dropbox, sharing
yeah.
documents via Dropbox. And then we tried using FileVine and then found out FileVine was more meant for personal injury law firms and didn't really work out for a family law firm. And so this last year in 2022, we transitioned to Clio. And Clio has been very good for us. And
Yeah.
we went to Clio conference, that was great. So it's
Yeah.
just a lot of trial and error over the years and lessons learned.
I think one of the challenges sometimes entrepreneurs have is, on day one, they're doing everything, they're making all the decisions. And as the business grows, you need to start letting go of some of those things. You need to start delegating things. Do you have any thoughts about, how best to do that?
You know, um, Entrepreneurs, a lot of them are type A personalities and like to be in control. I'm speaking from firsthand experience. And so definitely what you said is true. Being able to let go of the reins and trust the people around you and trust your team and trust that you did do a good job hiring and bringing in the people. And I just learned this last week, by the way. See, I'm learning things all the time. I just learned from my business coach that you have to be slow to hire and quick to fire. I
Yes.
was operating the other way around. I was quick to hire because I was like, oh, we're expanding. We need to be hiring, not for what we need now, but for the next 6 months. And I was very quick to hire and I was slow to fire because I wanted to give people another chance. Like, oh, I see the best in people. Maybe they made one mistake, maybe they can shift, I can change them. But no, I just learned you got to be slow to hire and quick to fire. If the numbers are not there, you just got to let go of people quickly. So it's tough, because I'm looking out not just for my employees, but for their families too. And I
Sure.
know
Sure.
every decision I make is going to ripple effect into so many families. But for the best of the business, I gotta learn
Yeah.
the new way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So trusting my team, and this last year, 6 months ago, my husband, we made the decision for him to leave the corporate world to join the firm.
Oh,
So
wow.
now I've learned to let go and trust him with a lot of the things going on in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Uh, so when you think about generating, clients, what has worked well for you? You mentioned this a little bit earlier on, so I want to dive into that a little bit better. What were sort of the things that really worked well?
I think the things that worked well is in the beginning, you put all your money back into advertising to grow that reputation and grow your brand because branding is so important. And part of branding is having a great reputation online because
Mm,
nowadays everyone's searching online for law firms or any companies. And so we built up our reviews really quickly. in the legal world, especially in family law, it's sometimes very sensitive for people to write reviews. So we tell our clients, you don't have to give the specifics about your case. You don't have
Sure.
to say that you're going through a divorce. You can just talk about that we provided general legal services for you and how satisfied you were with our law firm, and we have to ask. If we don't ask, they're not going to give that review because they don't want to disclose their private information in their case to the
Sure.
world. So we have to ask, and by asking and getting those reviews, that's how we built a reputation on the internet. And those reviews brought in more clients, and then also word of mouth, working with other attorneys. That also brought in more clients as well.
Yeah. So when you think about advertising, uh, these days there's so many outlets for that.
Yeah.
And you see attorney advertising in newspapers, you see it on buses, you see it on billboards, you see it on TV, you see, on the internet by AdWords, and they also see very nice websites. Was there one of those in particular that worked very well for you?
You mean in terms of different review websites?
Well, in terms of generating clients,
Yeah.
did you kind of keep track of where people came from, sort of where they learned about you?
Yeah. So I would say the top two websites are definitely Google and Yelp.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't think that Yelp is for law firms, and they think Yelp is for restaurants and for retail. But lots of law firms are getting business on Yelp
Yeah.
nowadays. And
Yeah.
Google, um, organically, people search on Google. We do SEO. We make sure our website has all the key terms. We created a blog on our website so that when people search, it'll come up. And then we also have a newsletter that goes out to all of our contacts.
Oh.
So Google and Yelp are definitely our two big um, generators.
Oh, very nice. Now, did you hire a marketing firm to help you do this, or did you guys kind of do this on your own?
We started off doing this on our own, but
Mm.
eventually we got the professionals in. So one of my good friends, James, he owns a company called Cybertegic. They do a lot of great Yelp and Google marketing. They're actually a certified Yelp marketing vendor. So I work with a Cybertegic.
Got it. Got it. So you also mentioned other attorneys sometimes refer clients to you. So was that an area that you kind of cultivated and developed?
Yeah, I'm a part of many different bar associations
Mm.
and lawyer associations. Some of them was like the Southern California Chinese Lawyers Association. I was the 2021 president of Scala. And then another one is the San Gabriel Valley Bar Association. So by going to these different networking organizations, you can meet a lot of other attorneys. And there's so many attorneys in different fields. For example, we don't do immigration. So I
Hmm.
have attorneys that own law firms specializing in immigration, and I refer my immigration callers to them. And in return, they can either pay me a referral fee, or if they have a lot of family law clients, they refer family law clients to me.
I
Same
see.
thing with bankruptcy law firms or criminal law firms. We don't do those areas. And so we cross refer cases to each other.
Right. Right. And do you also, I know you have a blog on your website, but do you also publish articles in sort of other places as well?
I do, yeah. So one of the important things to learn as a business owner is try to say yes as much as possible. There's actually a movie by Jim Carrey called Yes Man. Definitely watch that. It just shows how when you're positive in life and you say yes, opportunities just come up. So anytime I'm asked to do a webinar, to do pro bono work, to do a podcast like this one, I
Yeah.
always say yes and try to fit it into my schedule and make it happen as much as possible because you never know who's going to be watching or listening and when your next opportunity is going to come up.
Right.
So anytime I'm asked, I say yes.
Oh, very nice. Well, thank you very much for doing this one. One of the things I always thought about those types of opportunities is unlike advertising, when people see advertising, they already have a jaded opinion because they realize it's advertising. But if they hear you give a talk someplace or they read an article you wrote, that sort of establishes a great level of credibility for you because it's sort of another person or a third party has said, we've invited this person on the show, or we've invited this person to give a talk, or the editor has read that paper and published it. So I always thought those types of opportunities were really, really important in all professions, not just in lawyers.
It's definitely very important because people like to see authentic, organic
Yeah.
articles, not just advertising.
Yes. Yeah.
Advertising is like not 100% credible.
Exactly. Authentic was a good word you picked there. Yeah. Very, very nice. Uh, so was there sort of a turning point in your practice where, something happened and it was like, all right, now we really hit the accelerator and we're really taking off?
I think in the last 5, 6 years, the main trigger that happened was definitely COVID. In the
Mm,
beginning, it was just growing a little bit at a time over the months and years. But then the minute the pandemic happened, we saw, an exponential growth in family law. And, I'm sure everyone's been hearing about it, that divorce has gone up, but it's not a rumor. It's
it's true.
from personal experience, it's true. And
Yeah.
and in family law, holidays and Valentine's Day are our busiest times too.
Oh,
During
really?
holidays, yeah, stress levels are up. There's a lot of anxiety, and people are more quick to pull the trigger during that time. And Valentine's Day, or our phones are off the hook. The people don't get flowers, and it's like, okay, that's the last straw. I'm calling the divorce lawyer.
Oh, wow. Well, I better make sure I get some flowers for my wife then for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, expectations are high on
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
Uh, excellent advice. Excellent advice to all of our listeners. Yeah. So is there, as you look out into the future, what do you see, for Yang law offices?
Well, I foresee us continuing to grow and continuing to help families and family law. But one new area that I'm
Mm,
actually expanding into in the last year and a half is the area of mass torts. So I have two very close friends who are law firm owners, and they focus on personal injury and mass torts. And they've sort of reeled me into the mass tort arena. I've attended quite a few conferences in the last year specializing around mass torts, and most people don't know what mass torts is. So I've been explaining a lot. So torts is injury cases. Anytime where someone gets injured is a tort
okay.
case. Mass torts is where something happens and a lot of people
Mm,
get injured all at the same time from one situation. For example, in California, we have a lot of fires year after year after year, multiple
yes.
fires throughout the year. And sometimes these fires are caused by an entity, let's say, PG&E. They were responsible for the fires in the last couple years. So we represent the victims who got injured. Some people lost their homes. Some people lost um, family members. Some people lost pets. Some people lost their vehicles. So it's not a class action. People ask me, is this the same
Mm,
as a class action? No, because a class action is where everyone sues together. They get certified as a class and they file one lawsuit.
oh, I
Mass
see.
tort cases, every person has a different injury. And so they all file a separate case, but it's all against the same entity that caused the situation to arise.
I
So
see.
we represent many, many clients against usually a big corporate entity. And we were able to help a lot of people at once, because in family law, when I was starting off on my own, I can maybe handle one hearing a day, maybe two
Yeah.
maximum, but I'm limited in how many people I can help. As I expand and I get more attorneys under me, I'm able to help. Let's say I have two attorneys. I can help now double the amount of
Sure.
people. If I
Yeah.
hire three attorneys, now it's triple. Um, but in mass torts, I can help thousands of people, by because it's the same case that we're litigating. In divorce cases, every case is different. It's a different
Mm,
set of facts. Some people have kids, some people have domestic violence. Every case is different. But in mass tort cases, I can file the same fact pattern, but for thousands of people and get them their settlement. So I feel like it's a much bigger reach, and a lot more rewarding by the number of families I can help and touch. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm very interested in this area, and I've been expanding into mass torts.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So I remember we talked, and you mentioned that you have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and computer science. And
Yes.
so, would you have any advice for someone who's sort of thinking about going into law? Maybe they're like you and I, they're engineers, and they're thinking about a career change, and they're considering law school. Do you have any words of wisdom for them?
Yeah, so for engineers, the natural progression into law would be intellectual property.
Yeah.
I actually never knew what a high demand there was for lawyers with engineering backgrounds until I passed the bar exam and I got that offer so quickly. But
Hmm.
I always thought engineering and law were two completely different worlds and they weren't connected. But in order to succeed in IP, most of the lawyers have engineering backgrounds. In fact, in order to even sit for the patent bar, there's a
Hmm.
separate bar that patent attorneys need to pass called the
Yeah.
patent bar. You have to have some kind of technical requirement that you meet in order to even qualify to take that patent bar. You know, people with a political science or English or history degree, they don't qualify to sit for the
Uh,
patent bar. They
I
have to end
see.
up taking engineering or math classes. So for people with engineering backgrounds, I definitely encourage them looking into intellectual property. And within intellectual property, there's so many different realms too. There's prosecution, there's litigation. You know, within those areas, you can choose between doing patents or doing trademarks or doing copyrights. You know, patents is like hard IP, trademarks and copyrights are more like soft IP and don't really require an engineering background. But
Yeah.
there's so many different fields within intellectual property you can look into. And then, you know, if like me, you decide IP, there's other areas you want to explore. You know, try family law, try bankruptcy, try immigration, try personal injury. There's so many different areas. I highly recommend law students getting internships while they're in
Mm,
law school because
okay.
it's hard to determine what area you like just from books and textbooks alone.
Yeah.
Getting that hands-on experience is very valuable.
Yeah. That's great advice. So, Elizabeth, I want to start wrapping things up. If people want to find out more about you and your law firm, where's the best place for them to go?
They can go visit my website, which is yanglawoffices.com, or they can follow us on Instagram at Yang Law Offices. We also have a Facebook pages too if they search Yang Law Offices.
Okay, that's great. Is there something that I did not ask you that I should have, or something else you'd like to say to our listeners that I haven't asked?
Um, you know, in the last couple of years, what I've learned is trust the process. A lot of times you try
Mm,
to plan things, try to do your 1 year plan, 5 year plan, 10 year plan, but God has a better plan than any human can ever plan. So I would say just trust the process and know that, you know, the best is yet to come. And a lot of times letting go and trusting the process is better than holding on tight and be like, oh, I need to make my life a certain way and I'm stuck to this. You know, that
yes.
causes a lot of anxiety. Just
Yeah.
have a general plan. And, you know, I would have never been able to plan COVID, for example.
Right.
I could have. And it
Right.
happened. And we just got to adapt and go with the flow.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the wonderful questions, Bella.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.